Hello, Aubrey. How's it going today?
Hey, Lindsay, I'm great. I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
I'm wondering, do you often lend things to friends?
Mm, yeah, I'd say I'm usually the one who borrows things
Mm.
from friends just because we do a lot of outdoor stuff and other people have all this equipment that we don't necessarily have at this point.
Are you
So
good
we
at
do more
returning
borrowing.
something that you borrow?
I am good at that. Yeah, I prioritize that for sure because I
That's
know how
good.
it feels if someone doesn't. It's weird when people don't prioritize getting it back.
It is weird
Ye-
because then you have to go and ask for it. That's a little bit awkward,
Yeah,
right?
don't put anyone through that.
No.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I asked you because lend or lend out is one of the phrasal verbs we're focusing on today. We have good news for you guys.
Yeah.
Some phrasal verbs you don't have to worry about, you don't have to stress over them. We're going to share
Yes.
three today that are just such verbs.
Oh, I think our listeners are gonna be so happy to hear that, Aubrey, because I think when our listeners think about phrasal verbs, they think, "Oh, no, emergency," right? We know
Right.
that phrasal verbs can have you take one verb and it could have 8 different meanings depending on which preposition you add to it, right?
Exactly.
That is a phrasal verb,
And
so
even
ooh,
sometimes with the same phrasal with the same preposition, there are
yes.
multiple meanings. As
That's
you guys have heard,
insane.
if you search phrasal verbs in the app, on the website, there are a lot of great episodes we've done, and it is kind of insane how
It's insane.
they can be.
Yeah. So today is the good news. You guys are going to be really happy today to find out that there are probably more than these, but there are at least 3
Yeah,
that
there
are what, Aubrey?
there are a few, but there are 3 that we're gonna share today that are totally useless, meaning they have no meaning that's different from the base verb, right?
Yes.
The only
Yes.
change is every time you use a phrasal verb, it does make it a little more informal. So that's the difference here, right? It's more like colloquial speech almost to have these phrasal verbs because they don't
Yeah.
have a different meaning.
Yeah. And I think our recommendation here before we get into this is not necessarily to drop the preposition, right, Aubrey? But you could to know that
Yep.
you can,
Yep, just
right?
to know that you don't have to worry about them. You can use both interchangeably, that base verb and the phrasal verb with the preposition.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a few other episodes on All Ears English about redundant expressions, and that's really fun. So if you come back to allearsenglish.com, type redundant into the search
Yes.
bar, this is what these are, is redundant phrasal verbs. Like they don't, when you put the verb with the preposition, the preposition adds no extra value, right?
Exactly, right? And this was inspired by a recent episode you and I were recording when we taught start out and start off, which really
Yes.
have no difference from start, right? That was episode 1960. If you guys missed it, go check it out. It was a really good one.
I love this. I'm excited. So I want to know now. I
Yes.
want to know what these are. So what are they? What's the
Right.
first one?
All right, let's dive in here. The first one is sit down. So
Mhm.
if you say, for example, could you sit down, please? You absolutely could just say, could you sit, please? Same meaning. There is no difference.
Yes, and I wanna talk a little bit about why we maybe add that down, right? But let's give some examples, right? So, what would be the first example, Aubrey?
So
So
another one is
yeah.
sit down
Yeah,
over here if you don't mind, or same
okay.
meaning. If you don't mind, please sit down over here.
So, why do you think then that we do like, why did this word get created with down? What do you think in the context of connection and conversation moments?
Yeah, it
Why?
is just that little bit more friendly, more informal. I think that's
Oh,
why they sort of are considered colloquial speech sometimes, because
okay.
colloquialisms are all about being more informal, being more friendly with the people who live near you, and our language just sort of adjusts to what
Interesting.
feels more friendly and natural to us.
Okay, I was gonna go in the opposite direction. I was imagining a teacher, like, scolding a kid, in the
Sit
5th grade.
down to
"Sit down."
emphasize. Oh, interesting. Because that's true if you just say, "Sit," it doesn't have you need that extra syllable to emphasize, "Sit down."
Yeah, and it's interesting if we think about different contexts because I would never say "sit down" to my dog, but I always say
Mm,
"sit." "Sit, Kiefer." Right? So,
interesting.
why?
Right?
Why
I
do you
don't
think?
know.
I mean, are we talking about so maybe there is an element here where it's really more for humans, rather than I don't know, other types of species because maybe it is friendly or maybe it is more communicative. It's adding a little something extra, right?
Interesting. Yeah. It's because it's not even about sitting on a chair. Because you could say sit down and you're talking about the floor. Who
Sure.
knows, right? But it's true, it's used more for humans. Interesting. It's Why though? Why can't we just say sit, right? It's
And
just sort of developed that way.
we can though, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can say sit. We can say it like that same teacher could say sit. Right? I'm sure you've said that
Yes.
to your kids before. Sit.
Yes, right. Sit now.
Right? Or you invite friends in. Oh, please sit here. Feels a
Mhm.
little more formal to me. If you're having people over for dinner, please sit here or sit down here. Maybe a little more formal,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Every time we use a phrasal verb, that's just a little bit more informal, a
Yeah.
little bit more friendly, but really the meaning is the same. So this is one that you don't have to stress about, right? The meaning's the same. You will hear both, but this it's such a subtle
Yeah.
difference that it just really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't add a ton of value. So you have that flexibility here, guys, and you don't need to stress out and think that the meaning is completely changing. It's not when we add the
Exactly.
preposition. Okay, I'm ready for number 2.
All right, number 2 is lend out, right? So we might say the library lends out books or the library lends books. No change in
Yeah.
meaning when we add that preposition out.
I see no change here at all. For
Mhm.
example, I don't like to lend my car, or I don't like to lend out my car, right? Or I don't like to lend my car out. It's a separable phrasal verb. What does that mean, Aubrey?
Right, that
Separable
you
phrasal verb.
can take the direct object, in this case, car, and separate lend and out and say either I don't like to lend out my car, where they're together, lend and out, or I don't like to lend my car out with the direct object between the base verb and the preposition. Both are
Yes.
acceptable.
Yes. And why do we would we use the word, just a bonus for our listeners today? Why would we use lend over rent?
Right,
What's the
this is
difference?
interesting, right? The lend means we're giving it free of charge, and if we're going to rent something, that means there will be payment for it.
Yes, that's a key piece. That's important, right?
Mhm.
You talk about like, do you lend your stuff out? As you asked me in the beginning, to your friends, your tools. Maybe you have a lot of tools for, or a car that someone would want to use for moving, for example,
Right,
right?
and there are a lot of new companies where you can rent out your car to someone, right? So if
Right.
someone asks you, "Can you lend me your car?" versus, "Can you rent your car out?" Very big difference. We wanna be clear on those.
I mean, there's a whole economy that's cropped
Yeah.
up in the aughts around the peer-to-peer sharing economy, right?
Yes.
I mean, think about Rent the Runway. Have you ever used
No.
that service before? Rent the
No.
Runway?
What is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never used it before, but I think it's a way that I think it's just women can rent, like, nicer clothes from other, like, you
Oh,
just it's the peer-to-peer, right? Rent out your
interesting.
car. All these things we can do now due to these double-sided marketplaces that have cropped up
Right?
in the business world
Wedding
through
dress
technology.
rentals, how
Right,
home
right, right, right.
rentals, rentals of private vehicles. It's true, it's interesting how that's become more and more popular,
Yeah, a wedding dress rental would be really smart. Why is it that men can rent tuxes, but women can't rent wedding dresses if it's something
right?
you only wear once in your life?
It's
Anyways.
so true.
Okay, Aubrey, what's our third here?
Okay, this last one is pack up. So you might say, I packed up my suitcase, or
Mhm.
just I packed my suitcase, right? There's no
Yeah.
really not a difference between pack up and pack. For some reason, we use both. This is a phrasal verb you don't really need.
Yeah, and as we said before, the only real difference, which doesn't matter that much, but maybe just makes it a little bit more casual, Are you gonna pack up tonight or are you gonna pack tonight? They mean the same thing.
Absolutely. They're so interchangeable, right? So this is one thing. It's nice to have a few things that you don't have to stress about. You can use either of these, right? Pack your bags up and load them into the car, or pack your bags and load them. Same meaning.
Yeah. Aubrey, what kind of a traveler are you? Are you the person that needs to be packed up the night before a trip, or are you someone that is throwing things into a suitcase at 5 minutes before you're supposed to leave the house?
I feel like it definitely depends on the trip. If it's like a longer trip where I really have had to put some forethought into what do I need, how long am I going to be there, then I'm going to be packed in advance. But often we'll go up to my in-laws' cabin just for like a
Yeah.
night, and then I'm just throwing a few things into a backpack.
And when you do that, do you forget things? When you do it in the last minute, do you tend to forget stuff?
Absolutely. Yes, always.
Yeah.
What about you? I
Yeah.
imagine you're a pack in advance kinda gal.
I am good. We're leaving for a trip to Taos as soon as we finish this recording today, Aubrey, and I am definitely packed up
Nice.
because I don't like that. I've had a lot of nightmares, like a recurring nightmare that I'm at the air or I'm my flight leaves in like an hour and I have to throw all my stuff in a bag and get to the airport, it stresses me out. I
And
don't
you're
like
so
that.
right, you're absolutely going to forget something, it's inevitable that you're
Yes.
and it might be something that's not I've left and forgotten, my contacts before back when I
Oh,
had glasses. I got LASIK surgery once upon a time, but when I forgot my
oh, good.
contacts and
Yeah,
it's
you
that's
don't
not
wanna
a
do that.
you just had to wear my glasses the whole time.
Well, it kinda messes up your trip, right? And then I
Ah,
try not to overthink it because when I pack the night before, but then I always think, "Maybe I forgot something," but as long as I have my wallet and my phone, I'm pretty much good. You know what I mean?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I wanted to share here is we are sharing these phrasal verbs that we would call them sort of unnecessary. All three that
Mhm.
we've shared, this phrasal verb has no additional meaning other than the base verb, like so similar. But a
Yeah.
lot of verbs have unnecessary meaning, but then also other meanings, idiomatic meaning. So let's share one example so that it's clear what we mean.
Yeah.
Often, a phrasal verb, you'll see that there's an unnecessary meaning, but then it might also have these idiomatic meanings.
Ooh, tricky. Okay, I think we're gonna have to get some examples to really understand what we're trying to say here. So what do we
Yes.
mean by this? What's an example?
So one example is the phrasal verb open up. Of course,
Okay.
we have this useless meaning. If you
Yeah.
say, I'm going to open this letter, we also would say, I'm going to open up this letter. Same
Okay.
meaning. We really
Useless,
don't need that
redundant.
phrasal verb. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, but
But it also has idiomatic meanings, right?
yeah.
Um, well, the meaning just to become more willing to share or confide, right? I'm glad you are willing to open up to me.
Yes. So obviously, like you're not talking about physically opening up a person. It's about their heart opening, like their willingness to share opening,
Right, a
right?
metaphorical opening up of your feelings and your willingness to talk about something that's on a little deeper level. We talk about this a lot with you guys. Open up with friends, right? Share
Yeah.
your feelings, share your ideas. But the thing about this phrasal verb is this is what can maybe throw you off is you'll see that there will be a useless phrasal verb. It has the same meaning as open, but then
Mhm.
also there are additional meanings too. So phrasal verbs can just be tricky, right? Luckily here we've
Yeah.
given you 3 that don't have any other idiomatic meanings. So at least there are these 3 that you don't have to worry about.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So these three you can put in the safe category where you're fine.
Yes, right, exactly.
I love it. All right, let's do a role play for our listeners here, shall
All
we?
right, yes. You, have some bad news to share with me in
Oh
this role
no.
play, Lindsay.
All right, here we go. All right. So sit down, would you? I need to tell you something.
Sure, no problem. Is everything okay?
Well, you lent me your car this morning, and unfortunately, I got into a minor fender bender.
Oh, no, it's fine. Accidents happen. I'm glad you're okay.
At the shop, I had to pack up some things you'd left inside it. It was the other driver's fault, so it'll be covered, but I'm sorry for the hassle.
Not your fault at all, no worries. Oh, that would be
Oh my
such a
gosh.
worst case scenario if you borrow someone's car and get in a wreck.
It's a
At least it wasn't
terrible
your
scenario.
fault, Lindsay.
I know, that's why I don't like driving other people's cars sometimes. I don't like
Yes.
that. Stresses me out a lot. All right, so first thing I said here was, "Sit down, would you?" Right?
And this is interesting to think about. I don't feel like you would say sit, would you? Like it's
Mhm.
so subtle. This is one where it's on the lists of useless phrasal verbs, but the nuance here is so subtle. Just because it
Yeah.
makes it more informal kind of softens it. In this case, like sit down, would you? But then sometimes, like you said, makes it harsher. Sit down. Either way, it's adding a little bit of emphasis, either softer or more harsh.
Exactly, exactly, and then what did I say? What was the next thing I said here?
You said, "You lent me your car." So this is you could either say lend out or lend.
Yep,
And this is interesting where you wouldn't say you could say you lent out your car to me, but it's so many more words that we
right.
wouldn't, right? We'd just say, "You lent me your car."
Yeah, we don't say things that are hard to say,
Yeah,
right?
don't add
Instead,
more
we just
words.
cut out that extra word.
Exactly.
Okay, and then I said, "It's at the shop. I had to pack up some things you'd left inside." And I could have easily said I had to pack some things you'd left inside, right? It doesn't add
Exactly.
a ton of extra value. There's a little bit of nuance here, right, in the difference, but it's so
So
minimal that
subtle.
it's hard for us to teach what it is. So that's why we're
Exactly.
saying it's redundant.
You
Yeah.
absolutely could say, I had to pack some things you left in the car." It's really the same meaning, not one to stress about.
It really isn't. Okay, this is good. So this is great news. I mean, what else do our listeners need to know today?
Well, I want to give a little plug for a future episode. As I was
Yeah.
researching this one, there was some interesting things coming up with the verbs to lend and to loan, especially in the past
Mhm.
tense, right? With this role play, you lent me your car. There's a very common mistake to confuse lent and loaned. So this, I think we should for sure do an episode about
That'd be
soon. Make sure
great.
you follow so you don't miss that grammar episode.
Ooh, I'm excited for that episode. Let's
Yeah.
do that the next time we record, Aubrey. And so, guys, yeah, again, as Aubrey said, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. If you're listening in YouTube, which you could be watching us in YouTube, hit subscribe so you get every single episode. What should we leave our listeners with today?
Yes, phrasal verbs, you guys know how confusing they can be. I think it's a relief to know sometimes you don't have to worry about them, right? For today's three phrasal verbs, you can use either the base verb or the phrasal verb interchangeably. Don't stress about these,
Yeah, guys, this is the good news, right?
right?
Another day we can dive into all the other meanings for different phrasal verbs, but there are a few that you don't need to stress about as much. I think, Aubrey, a key to learning a language, and I'm learning Arabic right now, right? Getting ready for my trip.
Yes,
And I really have to decide what matters. I only have a month left, 2 months left. I have to know what really matters. How do I spend my time? We're telling you guys how to spend your time today.
exactly. It's so helpful in a language to know what you don't have to worry about so that you can focus on what really is going to help your language grow more quickly.
Yes, so good. All right, thanks for hanging out on the mic today. I'll see you very soon.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye.